Well, good morning, everybody. This is DearMamaSal on a very nippy would be the word. It is -1 here in southern British Columbia, which would make it 30 in American. And I know for those of you living in the cooler climes, that is just laughable. But you see, this is British Columbia. We don't do cold very well in the southern part of British Columbia. Now, the northern parts of British Columbia, even the central parts of British Columbia, even the eastern parts of British Columbia, all do the cold really well. But those of us who live in what we call Lotus Land, we don't do it. We don't do it. Unless, of course, we're teenagers or skiers. And I say teenagers because I'm thinking snowboarding and all those wonderful things up at Whistler. You know, that's fine. But for the rest of us, suburbanites, it's like, you know, not so much. Now, the good news was last night I had reason to check, and I believe we're now 118 days until spring, which of course for me is wonderful. I don't want to mention how many more shopping days you have left until Christmas, or the fact that I am going to travel on the busiest travel weekend of the year. Why didn't I think of that? Now I wonder, because I know my viewers pretty well, I wonder how many of you have some concern about my traveling with all the travel warnings and everything else that are out. And I would have to say, and I'm sure that many of you would agree with me, that yes, there is a chance, a very, very small chance, by the way, because A, I'm traveling by car. As far as I know, we're not going to any major events or doing anything that, you know, will put me in harm's way. But you know, you've got to look at it and go, what are the percentage chances? And I am quite sure that if you're into the math and you do the analysis, your chances of being caught in something like that are probably far, far less than being in an accident, for example, if you drive a car. And yet we drive cars with impunity every day. So what's the point? You know, you've got to sort of realize that there is no life without risk. There is risk in everything we do. And I keep going back to the risk, for example, that we all took in the Vegas trip. Huge risk in terms of we didn't know each other, we didn't know whether we'd get on. We got a fair idea that we must have some things in common because we were all together on DearMamaSal. Now, you know, DearMamaSal has a mentality to it that is based on support and care. So I was pretty sure that we would get on fairly well. I mean, we didn't have to be, you know, bosom buddies, but what I'm saying is that I was pretty sure we'd get on fairly well. We'd be able to cope with each other, let's put it that way. And certainly it was a risk well worth taking, because I am pretty sure I would never in my lifetime have met Ange if I hadn't done it. And you know, Ange has been a delight in my life ever since. And I say that because, you know, we're in contact almost every day, and most days see, just thinking about her makes me laugh. I don't know why. but that's what she brought into my life. She brought a level of insane laughter. And it's what a wonderful gift to give to somebody, is the gift of laughter. So I go, thanks, Ange, and thanks, Leah, and thanks, Alice, for making that trip possible so that I could have that gift. And it's the gift that keeps on giving, because I just have to think about her and I start to laugh, and some of you will understand why. But I think what I love about Ange is her sense of, her kid comes out to play very, very easily, and it's not like stupid play. It's like she sees fun in things, and she's definitely a great hostess in her own town. I'm not sure I'd be nearly as good as a hostess in my town, but she really is a really great host in her own town, hostess. And you really got a sense that, whatever Ange does in her life, she's a great organizer of enjoyment. I think I'd have to put it that way. And the same way as Leah and Wayne were wonderful about knowing that it would be really nice to go out one night and get dressed up and go to a show. And we did. What a great gift. Because that show that we went to, the first one particularly, the $1 Million Quartet, I will remember for a long time. And every time I talk about Vegas, I talk about that show and go, gosh, it was such a fun show. And there are not many shows you go to where it actually finishes and you're still so wrapped up in it, and you go, what? They finished? And it was just like, they finished it at a place where you wouldn't expect them to. And it was just like, what? Oh my God, it's finished. And I was really quite upset that it was. Not many shows do that to you. So definitely well worth going for. So the thing about risk is, I think the lack of risk is interesting. So let's have a little talk about that. In as much as I think as we get older, what we do is we don't do as many things that are risky. We eat the same foods a lot. We sort of have a routine that works, and we get quite upset if anybody takes us out of it. And so there really isn't much risk attached to our lives. And I don't know about the rest of you, but every now and then I'll, just on principle, take a completely different way home. Not very often, but every now and then, a couple of times a year. What I'll do is I'll turn on my GPS and see where it takes me, as opposed to the route that I normally take, and time it to see if it's any better, and it really isn't. But it is interesting to see what the GPS recommends. The other thing I try and do is actually take a different route to work. So-and-so, otherwise known as. That's quite interesting. Never mind. Move on, so. Reframe. So let's have a look at why not taking a risk is, in some ways, unhealthy. If I hadn't gone to Vegas, I would obviously not have had a lot of the experiences. I was thinking about, if I hadn't gone to Vegas, I hadn't taken the risk, I probably would never have been in Erin's neck of the woods, you know what I mean? I mean, we were 4 hours away, but we were close enough. And therefore wouldn't have done the road trip. If if I had not gone to Vegas, therefore I would never have gone down Ship Creek Road, as we call it. If I had not taken the risk to go to Vegas, I would not have this memory emblazoned in my brain of Wilma and Baker. There's this town called Baker, and there was this woman that we saw there that just, you know, really came out of the Flintstones. I don't care what anybody does. Nobody's going to get that picture out of my mind. And I'm sure for all four of us, the mention of the word Baker, we can all see Wilma. We don't know what her real name was, but we called her Wilma for obvious reasons. And as I said, the only thing that really shocked us was that they weren't playing the Deliverance music, you know, the dueling banjos as we walked in. So, you know, those memories, you can't buy that. You can't get that from a YouTube sort of video. Maybe in a way you can from our recounting of the stories in the broadcast, because we keep repeating them, don't we? But stuff like that, you can gather how funny it was for us, because, you know, we all crack up. But, you know, you can't buy that in terms of, you know, you can't go on Black Friday and just go, okay, order me up a memory. You know, it is part of the experience. Oh, my horror on leaving Ange at the air, you know, inside the terminal where I had to leave her, and that broke my heart. And then all the things that happened to me in the next hour where I really needed Ange. You know, it was just like, please, where's my buddy? And so if you don't take a risk, you don't get the joy. Now, as I said, not everything to do with taking a risk is joyful. Some of it, including my farewell to Vegas last hour, was pretty stressful, to put it mildly. And I lost my hat and my Canada pin and a few other things that I had. You know, what was the other thing I lost there? Something else. But, you know, it was a very small price to pay for all the amazing fun we had. I would say that I know a lot of my viewers are sitting in the States and you're all getting ready for your Thanksgiving dinner. And part of me goes, did you think about maybe taking a risk and moving people around a bit this year? Because the chances is your family probably always sit in the same places. Your mum sits here, dad sits there, and depending on the order of the children, they all sit into different places with their spouses or whatever. And it was even a case of, hey, or shall we all have them all in their usual places? I don't know, it's up to you. Maybe the risk for some of you is to let some of the people at your dinner table help you a little bit more in getting everything ready. I found that most people thoroughly enjoy being part of the process, as long as they know what to do. It's always a bit stressful for the visitors, or just because they don't know your way of doing it. So one of the things I try and do, if I have people go, I either make sure they really know what I want, if I have a specific thing, I'll just go, lay the table. I'll let you know if it's not right. But just lay the damn thing. Now, I wanted to give you a tip of the day. Everybody always laughs at me because I have beautifully laundered and ironed napkins. that I use. And I just wanted to let you guys know that if you have good quality napkins, I never iron mine, although everybody thinks I spent hours doing it. Two things I do with, in England we call them serviettes, so I don't know what they call it in American. The cloth bits of material that you wipe your face with when you're eating in good company. When I say in good company, in what, you know what I mean. Two things I do. Number one is I wash them as soon as possible after they've been used. And secondly, I never put them in the dryer. As soon as they have washed, I take them out and I fold them. I stretch them in both directions. And then I fold them wet. I know it sounds insane. And then I just literally what's that word? I sort of iron them by hand as I fold them. And I got news for you. That, yeah, I turn them over on this, I wash them on a Sunday night, I turn them over on a Monday, and by Tuesday I put them away. And they are perfect. So I would also challenge you, for any of you who are married and have husbands who actually still use real handkerchiefs, to try it on one. Just don't put it in the dryer, and just dry it from wet. That sounds insane. Everything gets dried from wet, Sal. You know what I'm saying. The reason I say that is, one thing that I always noticed was that a large proportion of men feel it is quite I almost want to say quite an honor to have a real handkerchief with them, as opposed to Kleenex. Don't know why. Better quality, better risk management. I don't know what it is, but I've not found many men in my life that didn't like freshly laundered handkerchiefs. Pity I didn't know about that trick when I was ironing them in those days. Take a risk. Have a look at your life, and have a look at this holiday weekend, and ask yourself, what one thing can I change up just for the sake of it? Maybe you always have pumpkin pie and blueberry crumble. I don't know what it is you have, but maybe you have something different this year. Pumpkin pie if the family enjoys it, but, you know, baked Alaska or something. Gosh, when did you last have baked Alaska, Sal? Oh, that would be a good thing to try in Hal. Ooh. Have to try that Christmas time. Yummy. Bet you Hal would do a good job of that. Now you're all... For those of you who don't know baked Alaska, look it up. Ha! What a great idea. Gotta try that one. On that very, very scrumptious note, remember to take a risk every now and then. You remember when I first started cooking, that was a huge risk. When I started cooking for you guys, it was a huge risk because I can't really cook, and I know that. I'm not a great cook. I'm not a precision cook. I am not a, do it by the numbers cook. I just sort of cook, you know. And it was a huge risk, and I was very, very fearful that I was going to get a lot of complaints about it. And I am very, very pleased to tell you that I've had far more people thank me for my mad cooking vids than I have had people complain about them. And of course you're bound to get somebody, because there are so-and-sos out there that get their little jollies out of doing that. But that's okay, and they're entitled to their opinion. But I do know one thing that really, really surprises me. When I look at my top 10 videos every month, about 80% of them are to do with Hal. So, duh, somebody out there is enjoying it. Who knew? Oh my gosh. I just driven over a big clump or 5 of snow that obviously has just dropped off somebody's car. I don't know where they live, but it must be somewhere within the region that I live, and there was enough snow for it to drop off their car like that. Oh, I am so grateful it wasn't at my house. Can you imagine? Oh, second tip of the day. Somebody at work said to me, and I've heard this before, just never ever done it in all my life. If you've got frost coming and your car is outside, as mine is, just put a couple of box tops. I had a couple of banker boxes that I had, old ones, and I just took the tops of them, I flattened them out and put them on my windshield last night, just under the windshield wipers. Guess what? Frost all over my car this morning, but not on my windshield. Saved me a lot of time. Nice trip. This is Dear Mama Sal saying bye-bye for now.